Hey, how's it going, dudes and dudettes? Brad the Guitarologist here. In this video, we are going to audit the auditors. And what that means is we're going to take a look at this video by KDH that he recently released. If you guys aren't familiar with KDH, he's done some videos called audio audits in the past, which I thought a couple of them were pretty good, and responded to one of them in the before, one about Rob Chapman. This video is going to be pretty rough. I'm not going to do any editing or any of that kind of stuff. I just want to take a look at this video. I've already watched it through one time, and there's some pretty glaring problems with it. I kind of wanted to respond to, and you'll see the reasons why I wanted to respond, because as a more or less an amp tech channel, which is what I regard myself. I actually regard this channel closer to the tech side. I identify more with techie channels than I do guitar channels. And this is one of the reasons why, and you'll see that in just a moment. So we're going to watch this video through and point out some of the issues that exist with this, and I'll show you exactly why you should never put your money into something like a Blackstar amplifier, and why you should kind of be skeptical anytime somebody comes out with a video like this that seems on the surface to make some sense, and it seems to rebuke or rebut some things that are out there online. But there are some things that KDH didn't consider in this video, and I just kind of like to set the record straight as somebody who's been inside of a lot of amplifiers and knows the difference. So let's play this and see what KDH has to say about Blackstar amps.
Other video. If you've seen any of my other videos, it's very likely that you will have seen this Blackstar amp that's been in the background. But, funny enough, it's never actually been heard on this channel. So let's get that out of the way first.
Okay, so we could skip this part. It's basically him wanking on a solo, which I do a lot too.
In the background of so many videos, from time to time I get comments about it. Which is strange because, as previously mentioned, I've never played it on the channel before. This dislike towards them. There has to be a reason, right?
So he's asking, why do people dislike Blackstars?
I asked my followers on Instagram what their thoughts on Blackstar were. You should follow me on Instagram, by the way. But there were
well, here's the problem. If you wanted to know what the problem with Blackstars were, you should have just asked me instead of asking people on Instagram, because
a lot of answers. Some were positive views, some were negative views. Overall, it was probably around 3/4 positive, 1/4 negative, which is still a lot of negative views. Where is it coming from? Some people had some theories that it had something to do with YouTubers, and more specifically, Fluff. And what they're referring to is the running joke that Fluff hates Blackstars, but I'm pretty sure that's all it is.
No.
To get to that, there's a little bit of technical jargon that we need to cover about amplifiers.
He's going to cover some technical jargon about amplifiers here, so let's listen to this technical jargon.
So this is a valve amp, and there's 4 main parts to it that you can see on the top. Really only 2 of them are relevant to us, but we'll cover all 4 because why not? This is your mains transformer. This is responsible for stepping up or stepping down the current from the mains to power your amplifier. And then this is your output transformer. This is responsible for driving your speakers. But we're not really concerned about those 2. What we are concerned about are these. These are your valves or tubes. Americans will call these tubes, most Europeans will call them valves. Means the same thing though. And you'll notice that there's different sizes. These 4 small ones are your preamp valves. The best way to think about those are they're your sound. They're responsible for your gain, your bass, your middle, your treble, just all of your EQ. So
Okay, so that's incorrect, and I can see where the misconception comes from, because EQ does lie in the preamp, but your EQ doesn't come from the tubes. It comes from filtering that happens between the stages that are in the tubes.
It really is your sound in these ones, but they're not loud, so they need to be made loud or amplified by these. The bigger ones, they're your power amp valves. These are responsible for making your amp loud. And if you bypass your preamp section, it's just going to be the guitar but louder. So it sounds a bit like this. then when you put the amplifier together, your preamplifier and your power amplifier, to create the one, it sounds kind of like this.
Skip ahead just a little bit here.
And that's the very core basics of a valve amplifier. Side note, because I know people will say this, a power amplifier does affect the sound of your amplifier too, but for simplicity's sake on this video, it's easier just to visualize that as your volume. Now, a total opposite of a valve amp is a solid state amp. They've got the same core principles, a preamp and a power amp, but instead of using valves, they use solid state technology, op amps and diodes. Solid state is smaller, lighter, and cheaper.
Skip ahead a little bit more here. I don't want to use this whole video,
valve preamp,
but I do want to make some points here.
Amp. And when combined, these amplifiers are called hybrid amps. So with all that in mind, we can go back to Blackstar. I've waded through the depths of the internet to try and find what the main complaints seem to be against them. I'm paraphrasing here, but they seem to be as follows. Number 1, Blackstar only makes solid-state and hybrid amplifiers, and solid-state and hybrids are bad, or just not as good as all valve amps.
Yeah, that's not the only complaint.
Is that Blackstar don't make it clear that their amplifiers are hybrid. In fact, they do the opposite, and falsely claim that some of their amplifiers are all valve. So now that we know the main issues, let's see if they hold any weight. Blackstar do make solid-state amps. I have one here. This is the Blackstar ID Core V2. Had it for a few years, and it's quite a nice practice amp.
Now the problem here is we're getting lost in a morass of things that have really nothing to do with the core issues of why the word is out on Blackstar and why you shouldn't buy one. But we'll skip this a second.
Now technically, that amplifier could be classed as a hybrid because it's got a modeling or digital preamp with a solid-state power amp. But either way, it's still solid-state in both parts, so it's a solid-state amplifier. But it sounds pretty good for practice. They also make straight-ahead solid-state amps too, most recently with their Silverline series. But Blackstar also have different lines of valve amps too. They have the HT series, the Series 1, the flagship of which I have right here, and they have the Artisan series as well. But here's the thing, are they actually all valve? It sounds like a simple question to answer, but it's far much more subjective than you may think. So let's take a look at this amp. It's a Series 1 200 watt head. And on the surface, when you look inside, you can see that it's got preamp valves and power amp valves. So it must be an all-valve amp. But that's on the surface. There's a few things going on in the circuitry. In this case, there's op amps and diodes in the signal path going into the preamp. And the best way to think about those is they're pushing your guitar signal into the preamp valves. Kind of like having a built-in overdrive pedal into your amp. And there are pros and cons to this. But overall it comes down to it does have an impact on the sound. Whether you like that sound or not is up to you.
Sounds like about 1,000 shitty metal bands to me, but that's my point of view. Just too dark.
But does using solid-state components in an amplifier with a valve preamp and a valve power amp make it a hybrid? Let me know in the comments what you think. Personally, I don't think so. I'll go into more detail as to why I don't think so in a minute, but let's say you do think that that makes it a hybrid amp. Well, then the second complaint I've seen against Blackstar comes in. Blackstar don't make it clear that their amps are hybrid. In fact, they do the opposite and falsely claim that their amplifiers are all valve. Now, part of this complaint mainly hinged on the accusation that Blackstar ran an ad for their HT5 amp stating that it was all valve. But I've only heard talk of this ad. I've never seen it.
So here's the problem with this line of thinking here, and I'll just kind of skip forward a little bit because what he goes into here is he's more or less debunking some of the ideas that people have that they're falsely advertising it as all tube, and that's one of the reasons that a lot of people hate Blackstar amps. That might be the reason why some people hate Blackstar amps, but that's not the real reason you should hate and avoid Blackstar amps. And again, we'll get into that in just a second. I'm gonna let him finish his point here.
I couldn't find it online. I even went through the trouble of going through a bunch of old guitar magazines to try and find Blackstar ads. and any of the ones like
Yeah, again, we're getting lost in the morass.
But this one does. The Marshall JCM 900, used by John 5 and fake amp and a valve for a power amp. It has solid-state components in.
Hang on a second. Let's back up, because he said something there.
Talking about anything all valve. But even if they did and I just couldn't find it, the HT5 does have a valve for a preamp and a valve for a power amp. It has solid-state components in between, but it does have valve power amp and valve preamp. But let's mention some other amplifiers.
That doesn't mean that it has a valve power amp and a valve preamp. It just means it has a valve in the power amp and a valve in the preamp. It doesn't mean that all of the power is handled, or that all of the amplification is being handled by just the tubes. You know, there are other things going on in a lot of these amps, and we'll take a look at a couple here in just a minute. And I'll show you why you should avoid these things.
That have the same type of circuitry that this one does. The Marshall JCM 900, used by John 5 and favoured by Jason Becker during the recording of the David Lee Roth A Little Ain't Enough album. The Marshall Silver Jubilee, used by Slash and Bonamassa. And the list of valve amps that have solid-state integration goes on. There's a couple of PVs, the mess.
Okay, so he's drawing some comparisons. Okay, these other amplifiers have solid-state components in them, therefore they must be similar, right? We should treat them with the same regard. Well, once again, we'll get into that in just a second. The answer is no, he shouldn't.
A Friedman with a switchable circuit. So, is this a bad thing? No, absolutely not. In fact, one of the most popular Marshall modifications was the Jose mod, just a Steve Vai's Marshalls. That had a diode clipping. And even if you're against all of that, if you've got a full all-valve amp, and you put an overdrive pedal in front of it, you're doing the same thing. And should Blackstar have to explicitly make it clear that even though their amplifiers have valve preamps and valve power amps, there is solid-state components in the amp, therefore it doesn't make it all-valve? I don't think so. And here's why. An all-valve amplifier would have to have an all-valve preamp, an all-valve power amp, but it would also have to have a tube rectifier, a tube phase inverter, and if the amplifier had any effects like reverb or tremolo, that would have to be tube powered too. And I can think of a lot of amplifiers that don't fit into those categories. To put that into perspective, the only Marshall amplifier that I'm aware of that has a tube rectifier is the Marshall JTM45. All the others use solid-state rectifiers. Does that make the Marshall JCM 800 a hybrid or solid-state amp? Not from my point of view. I think perhaps people are getting a little bit too hyper-focused about what parts are in their amplifiers instead of how their amplifiers sound. Even take a Marshall JCM 800 and an Orange Rock Reverb. Those are two EL34 powered amplifiers, but they don't sound anything alike. Marshall have a sound, Orange have a sound, and maybe having solid-state components going into the preamp is the Blackstar sound. Is that a sound that you like? Well, that's subjective. But it's an all-valve amplifier as far as I'm concerned. Whew, alright, that video got nerdy quick. My overall takeaway is that Blackstar seem to get hate for doing the same thing that just about every other amp brand are doing, which seems a little bit unfair.
Not so. Okay, so now we're going to get into the real reason you should avoid Blackstar amplifiers like the plague. Now, let's look at the guts of a couple of Blackstar amps. Okay, so this is, I don't know, it's on some forum here online. Hang on, let me get to it. Okay, so this is on Harmony Central, actually. So this is the HT Studio 20. All right, let's look inside the HT Studio 20 right here, okay? You can see what's involved. We have a couple of preamps, preamp tubes, rather, and a couple of what appear to be power amp tubes here, directly board mounted. You can see that there is a, I guess this is the rear. This would be the rear of the amp back here. So there's a rear board tied to a front main board with direct mounted tubes in the middle of the board, no less. So all of the heat is going to go basically right up into these boards and have nowhere else to go. Then we have a ribbon cable essentially here, or Molex connector between the two boards. We have several other connections between the two boards. It looked like you with some doing, you could get this board out. But the problem is, if you look a little bit closer, we'll blow this up just a little bit so you can see a little closer. You know, once again, we have, here's a big integrated circuit right here. So right away, without a schematic, this is going to be very difficult to troubleshoot. We also have 1, 2, 3 integrated circuits over here. Now, some of those might be in the switching matrix, but we really don't know. Some of them probably are on the input because they're over here near the preamp section. So it's possible that it's possible this could be some buffering to do with effects loop stuff or whatnot. We have a bunch of ICs here on the backboard. So there's 1, 2, 3 different ICs back here on this backboard. And again, there's an IC right there. There's one right there I can see. That's kind of hard to see, but it also looks like maybe there are a couple of standalone transistors up in there. I think it's looking like there might be a couple of standalone transistors there. Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7, 8 different ICs just right in here that I can see. And there's darkness up in here, so I'm assuming there might even be more. And then 9, 10, 11, and then this big one right here, there's like 12, just on this, there's 12 ICs. That in itself wouldn't be a major problem necessarily if it wasn't for all this heat. The problem is when you introduce the kind of heat that's generated in a tube amp with all of these ICs, you're going to have failures because solid state technology is, the tolerances are pretty close on, what they can be exposed to, the kinds of temperature ranges that in which they'll operate. So a lot of times you're going to get problems of the amp shutting down with a heat related issue, and you'll never be able to track it down simply because it's intermittent. So you don't know exactly what's going on. And when you cook PCBs like this, as we have shown in amps like the Marshall DSL series and TSL series, with those boards becoming conductive over time because of this heat, and also because of a Mesa that I've had on the channel that became conductive because of heat over time and failed for that reason and basically became garbage. There's a good expectation that the very same thing might happen to this amp over time. And it probably, frankly, wouldn't take that long if you ran it every day and you played at gig levels and you took this on a tour. I wouldn't want to rely on something like this. And here's the real problem. Here's the kicker. Well, let's actually, before we get to the kicker, let's look at one more amp. Let's see. Go to this one. Okay, so this is another one of their, so it's not just that one amp model. It's a lot of their amps. This one has only one tube in it, and it looks like it's just a preamp tube. I don't know if there are any other tubes back over here, but I don't think so, because here's the logo right here. So this is like some kind of little hybrid amp with a single preamp tube in it, basically just to say it's a tube amp. So it's a marketing gimmick to even put this in here at this point. It's just one tube in the amp. So they have a tube preamp here, but they have, look at this. Look how densely packed everything is in here too, if you had to work on this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, maybe 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. It looks like there's at least 18, 19, 20 transistors just that I can, and integrated circuits that I can see. No, 21, 22, 23. It looks like there are about 23 integrated circuits and transistors just on this board that I can see, and there's probably more on the backboard. And this wouldn't, like I said, this normally wouldn't be such an enormous deal, except they won't support these amps. If you try to send one of these amps in to Blackstar, you're in for a rude awakening, because if you go to their support page, watch this. Go to the support page, you scroll down through here, you can fill out a USA warranty application, right? You can fill out a UK warranty application. If you want support you can go to support. They have a FAQ section and an official forum, and that's about the extent of it. If you type in blackstar.com, it actually redirects you to blackstar.com/UK. So they're only located in the UK. If you go to support, customer support hub, and they just basically send you right into frequently asked questions. The third question down, which I'm sure they get quite frequently, is, can I get a schematic for my Blackstar amp, please? For safety regulation reasons, we only provide schematics to authorized Blackstar service centers and technicians. If you are in the UK, you are able to search our list of authorized UK service centers. You are able to find them here. So let's click on that. So yeah, indeed, they have some UK service centers in Britain, right? Do they have UK service centers in Britain? Huh. Do they? I'm not seeing any UK service centers in Britain. Maybe I have to put in a postcode, I presume, maybe, to find a UK. But surely there will be one in London that will just come up on the map, right? Possibly? Maybe? Surely? In London? Of all places? Nothing? Anything? No? We could do the Lambeth Waltz. No. Not a single thing I see. No pins in that map that I can see. Well, wait. What's that pin? Oh, no, that's just Hampton Court Palace. I don't think the Queen is going to be servicing your Blackstar. So, yeah, so that's a problem. So they have service centers, apparently, somewhere in the UK, but they seem to be few and far between, just from judging from the map. But there are exactly zero service centers outside the UK. You notice they only have an entry here for UK service centers and none for the US. So you're pretty much screwed if you have one of these Blackstar amps outside of the UK. You're SOL. They're not going to send you the schematic and support their product, despite the fact that it's chock full of so many integrated circuits. It would boggle your mind to even try to figure out how to service the thing. Even with all the equipment that I have in this room, I have everything I need to service an amplifier, but unless I have a schematic with something that on a PCB that's that densely packed with components, it could take me a year just of staring in the thing and tracing out a schematic by hand to service it. And at that point, it becomes more economical to pitch the thing in the dumpster and get yourself a new amplifier because you bought a piece of absolute garbage. So that is the real reason why you should at all cost avoid Blackstar amplifiers. And and props to KDH. I think he's done some good videos and stuff in the past where he's done the audio audits and all that stuff. But this is frankly a realm where he and a lot of other people, you just don't know what you're talking about on this particular subject when it comes to why you should or shouldn't buy particular amps. Now, if you were to look at some of the amps that he compared the Blackstar to, such as the JCM 900s and things of that nature, well, the JCM 900s, I could do a search for that schematic right now. Marshall JCM 900 schematic. So I'll just do a DuckDuckGo search for a JCM 900 schematic, and we'll just see what comes up. So we've got images for JCM 900 schematic. We've got right here JCM 900 handbook, Ampwares. I think Ampwares has a lot of stuff. There's Marshall schematics right there. I bet they've got it. But here we go. The JCM 900. This is the dual reverb version, the 4100. If we wanted the other version, we could find the other version. And yes, we do have some ICs in this amp. There's one, there's another one, there's another one, there's another one, another one. There's a lot of ICs in this amp. A lot of these are, or no, wait, that's the flow. That's the flow chart, excuse me. Or is it? No. So those are some ICs, excuse me. Yeah, so we have some integrated circuits in this amp, to be sure. So, yes, that's correct. It's built the same way, but You see how quickly I found that schematic? Found it just like that, right? So, you know, no matter how densely populated the board is for this amp, at least I have some chance of fixing the fucker when it breaks. Not so with the Blackstar. I couldn't even show you. Let's see. Let's see if we can find one Blackstar schematic that is leaked onto the internet. Let's see if we can find one. Blackstar Amp Schematic. Okay. Ooh, maybe there are some. Ooh, what's this? Maybe I have found one. There's an HT20 head schematic right there. Let's see. Yeah, this had to leak because they won't give you schematics. They even say they're not going to give you schematics. So, all right, there is a schematic for an HT20. So there's at least some opportunity. Yeah, if one breaks, you might be able to fix the thing. I'm not going to take it in for repair. I mean, you know, I'll let somebody else do that stuff. I would much rather work on an old Fender or an old Marshall, an old basically anything besides an old Mesa, because, you know, Mesas aren't laid out that great either. But, you know, there are some things that are actually worth working on and some things that are not worth working on because they're too densely packed. It's just too much going on inside them. And, you know, to repair it is always going to be a concern because amps break. There's so much heat that's generated inside of a tube amp. They'll break eventually. So, you know, it's a crapshoot. You're just risking your money, really. No, excuse me. That's not a, what am I talking? That's a PV Satriani. So see, you can even get a PV Satriani. I thought that looked weird. Okay, so that wasn't a Blackstar at all. That's not a Blackstar. It just has a headline of Blackstar. That's a PV. So what's this? This is a HT1R, but that's like one of their little amps or something, isn't it? Oh, look. So this is drawn by someone. Look. This is not even an official schematic. This is, look, drawn by T. Oguchi. So somebody actually laid this schematic out. This is like somebody who had to work on one and was like, man. So somebody actually had to trace that out. How long did it take them to trace this out and figure out, you know, all the pins on this IC, for instance, right here and where everything went? Probably forever. You know? So look, I see, there's another one into this big thing. Dude, it's just, you know, you're not going to be fixing this thing. You're not going to fix it. Your buddy down the street who is, you know, familiar with electronics a little bit is not going to be fixing it. Your amp tech guru who lives near you, who works at the music store or something, is not going to be fixing it, most likely. Most of those guys refuse these things. And just call them. Do this. Call your local Guitar Center or your local music store and just ask them, hey, do you take in Blackstar amps for repair? Just ask them that and see what the response is. The only ones who will probably take it in are the ones who just don't know yet that you shouldn't take it in. So, man, you know, enter at your own risk on some of this stuff. You know, this might be another one that's like fan drawn or drawn by a tech. See, it's like drawn out in longhand. But yeah, so you're not going to find this stuff. Here's another one that somebody has maybe drawn. How accurate is it? We don't know. Is it the entire amp? I don't know. Is this even an amp? This is an FLY3. I have no idea what that is. It's a headphone amp, so no, it's just a tiny little headphone amp. So somebody, yeah, you can trace out a headphone amp and throw it up on the internet and be a hero to the people who want to fix their Blackstar headphone amp. But who's going to trace out the other enormous Blackstar amps? you know, like the big 200 he showed. You know, nobody's going to want to do that. Nobody. Here's another. Let's see. This is an HT1R. What is this? Something. Oh, that's the one we already saw with all those integrated circuits in it. So, I mean, just do it. Just go, you know, call your local service center, ask them if they work on them, and then, you know, just do a search for Blackstar gut shots and look at the guts of some of these and ask yourself, you know, hey, do you think my typical guy around the corner could fix this thing without a schematic? And if the answer is no, then maybe, you know, stay away from the things. Anyway, that will do it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you have, hit subscribe down below. And to KDH, you know, no offense, brother. It's not about that. It's just about trying to set the record straight on some of this stuff, you know, because there's a lot of misapprehensions that go on all the time. And I know you're very aware of this. I'm sure your audience is also already aware of this. The misapprehensions and the, you know, just the misconceptions among guitarists. You know, one person mentions one thing in a forum, and then for some reason it just gets picked up and repeated and becomes gospel. And you shouldn't take anything I say as gospel either. Research it for yourself and figure it out. Like I said, call your local service center. You'll see what I'm talking about. If they take it in, I would be extremely surprised. And if they manage to fix it, they probably have a really good tech, and that's probably a safe place to take your stuff. So, but I'm not going to be taking in anything like that, most likely. The only reason I would take in something like that is just to be able to prove my point, you know, in full living color, how difficult it would be to fix something like that, or to attempt to fix something like that if you don't have a schematic. And, you know, I may even try to find the UK phone number of Blackstar and go to their, you know, call their corporate and say, hey, I've got this amp on my bench. Why won't you send me a schematic? You're actually asking my customer to ship this thing all the way to the UK to get it to a service center? How much sense does that make? Send me a schematic, mofos. You know? But anyway, that'll do it for this video. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. And for now, we will see y'all later.